We begin with the death of Wagner Chief Yevgeny Prigozhin and the impact it may have on the continent. Wagner, theoretically, could still function without Prigozhin. You see, Wagner operatives provide security to autocratic African leaders seeking to stay in power, as well as boots on the ground to fight rebels or extremist groups alongside under-equipped national armies. Besides the Central African Republic, Wagner's launchpad in Africa, Wagner mercenaries are known to be deployed in Libya, Mali and Sudan. For years, questions have swirled around Wagner's ambitions in Africa and where the group might expand next, especially in countries where military officers seized power. So how much of an impact, if any, would a leaderless mercenary group have on the continent? Let's find out in this cover story this week.
Russia has become one of the leading global players, exerting its influence on the continent through aid, economic development, trade, and military cooperation. Moscow's influence on Africa is intertwined with the activities of the mercenary group Wagner in various countries. The group is most active in the Central African Republic, Libya, Mali, and Sudan, all of which have a tenuous relationship with the West due to colonial legacies and inherent political differences. This video went viral days before Moscow claimed that the Wagner boss had died in a plane crash. Yevgeny Prigozhin stamped his group's strength on the continent in his military fatigues as he asserted how he was intent on freeing Africa.
We are working. The temperature is above 50 degrees Celsius, just how we like it. The Wagner Group is conducting a reconnaissance and search activities, making Russia even greater on every continent and Africa even freer.
But how widespread is the mercenary group in the continent? Approximately 1,000 Wagner troops entered CAR in 2018 to defend the government of President Faustin Archange Touadera against rebel attacks on the capital Bangui. In return, Wagner subsidiaries received unrestricted logging rights and control of the lucrative Dasima gold mine. Similarly, Wagner forces were deployed to Mozambique in 2019 to help fight the self-proclaimed Islamic State in the northern Cabo Delgado province. However, the group failed to contain the insurgency and withdrew from the area after a few months. In Mali, the armed forces received combat and surveillance aircraft from Moscow. On top of this, reports showed that Mali, one of the poorest countries in the world, was spending $10 million a month on Wagner mercenaries. Wagner also has a significant stake in Mali's oil sector, effectively controlling the price of fossil fuels for export. In some cases, Wagner's involvement in Africa has resulted in alleged human rights violations and exacerbated regional insecurity. In Libya, Wagner troops who fought alongside the Libyan National Army during its 2019 Tripoli campaign have been accused of committing extrajudicial killings and planting landmines in civilian areas. More recently, the group has been reportedly supplying Sudan's Rapid Support Forces militia with missiles during its war against the Sudanese army. Experts believe Russia's ties with the Wagner Group in Africa is a win-win, with Wagner benefiting from Russian weapons and Russia having preferential access to Africa's natural resources. Cooperation between the private military and the Russian government occurs, especially where raw materials are abundant, with Wagner controlling the business interests on the continent. Prigozhin's Wagner footprint in Africa was built on blood and treasure. Contracts giving access to valuable resources were made in payment for military support. They provided security and training in exchange for payment in management of mines, oil, and other natural resource endowments. In Niger, analysts think that the impact of Prigozhin's death will not be the same as countries that work together with the Russian mercenaries. Many say nothing will change and that the importance of Wagner in Niger or the Sahel is a question of belief.
The death of Wagner's top man, Prigozhin, is not going to completely reshuffle the cards in Africa, because behind this big company was the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, who had his hand in it. So for me, it's a puzzle. It means that there are elements that aren't there, that have passed away, Perhaps Putin will go on to reorganize the company so as to have exactly the same influence on it, with men he's capable of mastering. Because we mustn't forget that Prigozhin was in the process of taking on a certain scope that was somewhat escaping his master.
Une certaine ampleur qui échappait un peu à son maître.
The African-led and designed security initiatives are an explicit rejection of mercenaries. But for those military governments in the region, in Mali, Burkina Faso, and now Niger, the Russian operatives may be an attractive alternative. Wagner, if it survives, or other emerging Russian mercenary groups, will increasingly find the market limited to pushist regimes using them as the security partner of last resort. Bureau Report, WION World is One.